You're listening to the Digital Data Café podcast, where we talk about everything data-driven in your world. Join us each week to hear from the world's top business and industry leaders on why using data in a digital world matters. Here's your host, Albert Thompson.
Good afternoon. Another episode of the Digital Data Café. I am your host, Albert Thompson, CEO and founder of DrivenIQ. I'm with my guest and amazing journalist, Mr. John Keller from Auto Digest. John, thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
No, you're very welcome. And it's exciting, actually, right? Because this is kind of a reverse in kind. You recently just did a really nice article for DrivenIQ, where you shared some of our story about what we do and how we're using data to really build that 360-degree profile of how businesses are identifying their customers. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. A lot of unique stuff going on in the industry right now, and you all are on the leading edge.
Well, I appreciate that, man. We're doing the best that we can. But on that note, it's interesting that you said that, right? So one of the things that actually made me excited about, connecting with you and wanting to talk about Auto Digest is that you're actually really trying to get ahead of, the industry in terms of industry knowledge and, startups and, what's really making the industry move and groove from a journalistic standpoint. So why don't you tell the listeners today a little bit about, John Keller and who you are and what you're up to? Yeah.
So from a small town, Kentucky, grew up and nobody in the family was into cars. I was kind of the first one. It's not like some long lineage of dealership owners or whatever, but started in late 2020 at a Mercedes dealership in Louisville, Kentucky, actually. Just doing product knowledge and helping the sales team. But after being in the industry for close to 2 years now, I realized how much is out there that's not on the retail side, and then how much change is happening away from that scene, also in that. But what appealed to me was seeing the stories like yourself or the other people, third parties that are supporting dealerships or OEMs, suppliers that are really leading the edge for providing the products that ultimately get sold at dealerships.
No, that's great. And so you yourself had some retail experience at the Mercedes dealership. Why don't you to share your experience and what it is that you actually did at the store there?
Yeah, so it was actually kind of a really lucky opportunity. So I interviewed it at different ones, just looking to make some spare change. I'm in college currently, but it worked out. So I got offers from different dealerships, but a mentor that I have, and I mentioned this whenever we spoke on the phone.
Yep.
And I'll call him out. His name is Ashley. He works at a dealership for Bentleys in Florida, sells Bentleys and Rolls Royce. And he's been kind of my mentor in the automotive industry for going on, I guess, 2 years now since that initial conversation. He said, go with Mercedes. They're going to have you, if long-term, you're going to develop the right skills, be surrounded with the right people, the quality of people. That's not only going to help you in the retail side of sales or whatever you want to go into, but also those connections. And yeah, so spent some time there and I'm up in Ann Arbor, Michigan now, helping the Center for Automotive Research. As a Vincent, you can't.
Well, it's fuzzy there, but I guess the Center for Automotive Research. So what is that? What is the Center for Automotive Research? What kind of research are you doing up there in Ann Arbor?
Yeah, so it's a lot. They have a lot of variety. Some of it's private, some of it's government contracted, but it's the only nonprofit research firm automotive wise in the nation. Really? And it was tied to the University of Michigan up until 2001, I believe, and then they split off. And it's a nonpartisan way of doing things, right? Because if there's some other research firms that are tied to universities. I think Clemson has one. All the OEMs have their own, I'm sure, but with the right kind of things, you don't want bias. So that's what we provide.
Interesting. Well, and on the side note, so while you're doing automotive research, you're also doing automotive journalism, right? So
yeah, that's my passion.
That's your passion, right? We talked about that. So I think, one of the things that a lot of the listeners might want to hear about is, this new Auto Digest that you're starting up. Great name, by the way. I think it's going to have some definite brand opportunity there, but
Yeah.
you're doing stories. But I think one of the things that makes it really unique, right, is your niche. Your niche is not like every other automotive journalist, which is why we're here to talk about it today. So tell us, what's so special and unique about Auto Digest?
Precisely. So, I've been brainstorming starting a automotive blog of some sort for probably over a year now, right? But the content it's so saturated. There's a million different blogs. There's a million different ones on automotive in particular, but most of them are going to have stories about the new M3 or the new AMG or the new Lamborghini, and it's all about product information from the OEMs. Nobody's covering people like yourself. Nobody's covering the DrivenIQs, the stories of these companies that support the automakers, and so they're kind of suppliers. And I used the analogy earlier, right? You have the OEMs, and if the industry as a whole was analogous with a car, the OEMs would be the body, and then all the suppliers would be, and people like yourself would be the wheels that keep that car moving forward and keep this giant behemoth progressing. And nobody's telling those stories. So that's what we're here to
do. Well, I love that because, obviously there is a lot of moving parts in the industry, right? From tier 1 to tier 2, to aftermarkets, warranties. I mean, there's just so many different pieces of the puzzle that make this industry as a whole, well, for me, exciting, but, unique and different. And there's a lot of those stories that aren't being told. So, that's really exciting about what, Auto Digest can bring to the world, right? In terms of some of that information. So with that said, how did you get into journalism, and why did that become a passion of yours? What drives you and motivates you in this area?
Well, because I've always loved when you meet somebody and they're passionate about something, you want to feel like you can learn from that and be a part of it, right? And a great way to do that's journalism, covering people's stories, where they came from, why they got in the industry that they did, whether it be, data analytics like yourself, or, autonomous driving, electrification, battery management systems, whatever it is, there's a reason they do that. And there's a reason they're passionate about it. And it's deeper than just money most of the time. And if you find the right people, and that's who I'm here to learn from. That's who I'm here to provide information for other readers, and ultimately make the industry a bit more supportive.
I will 100% attest to that. There is definitely a motivator and a driving force behind it. And typically a lot of the founders that I meet with, it's a lot deeper than just the monetary gain, right? There's a reason why we're doing it, and there's a passion and a purpose behind it. And so I think you're spot on with that. So let's talk about some of the differential type of stories that you might cover as opposed to, say, a car and driver, right? So if you're going to do a blog or an article, would you cover a dealership, or would you cover, and what kind of story might you write?
Yeah, so anything that really is on the cutting edge of whatever in the industry. And a great example is Tesla. Obviously they've been covered at length. There's more information on Tesla than probably there was information on anything 30 years ago, like total. But I would cover if a dealership's doing something unique, right? I saw a story about the first dealership doing a transaction in the metaverse, which is crazy.
Yes.
And you said you may know
Yeah,
something
no,
about that.
I think I saw that, right? That's
Yeah.
with our guy Brian Kramer. Brian Kramer, I actually jokingly call him the father of the automotive metaverse. Like, he will literally go down as the father and pioneer behind the metaverse in automotive retail. So you saw that recent post. That's something that might be of interest to you.
Yeah, I read about that. And then if somebody's doing, anything that's new in the dealership groups, because most of these dealership groups are old, antiquated. They don't even want to think about a new service like you have, DriveBit. I mean, that's just like, that's a cardinal sin of dealerships, right? Giving the power to the consumer sometimes. But the ones that are leading the curve on customer service and these new things, then they have a lot more value than the ones who don't. It's becoming increasingly obvious, those who do not.
No, absolutely, 100%. And so, I mean, I guess, for those out there listening, What are some of the goals for Auto Digest? I mean, we talked about, being able to cover cutting edge, being able to cover, unique and niche stories that are driving the industry and propelling, us forward as a whole, not just the OEMs, but the wheels, as you put it. So what would you say are the goals right now that are driving Auto Digest? What propels you?
Yeah. So if somebody gets on Google and searches up new things in the automotive industry, it's likely going to show up some articles, very technical from Automotive News or whatever. And those are great stories, but it's not going to have much personality to it, much of a deeper story or meaning. So that's what I'm here to do. And people, it's ultimately right. It's all about the learning and yeah.
That's great. And I think it is. It's always about learning. And we have such a small industry. I always try to say it's incestuous, right? So it's like, believe it or not, John, and the more and more you get into the industry, the more you'll realize how small it actually is. We talk about Brian Kramer. We talk about, you'll see. It's just, we're very interconnected. We're very interwoven. So
that's a good thing. That's part of the appeal of it.
No, it really is. And I think what's exciting about where you're going with what you're doing, as you write about those wheels that are driving the industry, you're gonna maybe potentially be that common denominator of that with Auto Digest. So that's exciting for you. But what are some of the things that really motivate you? I know we talked earlier, and one of the things that you really are a big believer and a big proponent on, as am I. As far as from like one of the things that's happening in the industry, right, is the preservation of the retailer, right? We see Carvana, we see CarMax, we see these big digital retailing giants really starting to take hold of the market. What are your thoughts on the preservation of the consumer to the retailer?
Yeah, so on so many levels, the dealership has a lot of value to people and the community that they're in. And I'm not ingrained, I don't own a dealership, but I just see the value for what it is and what they are, and they've existed for as long as they have for a reason, right? This isn't a completely broken model, and you can shove all these new the marketing teams of Carvana and all this money can try to force that upon the industry as much as they want. But the fact of the matter is still that the car is the second most expensive thing that anyone's going to purchase in their life, usually, unless they, have a yacht or a helicopter.
Right.
But it's not. There's a bit of emotion to it, and just like stories like yourself, right? The car is not strictly an appliance, and it doesn't have to be.
I 100% agree with you, and I got to tell you, I think there are certain things. And I say this all the time. I think there are certain items that when we purchase, it just does not have to be an Amazon-like experience. It does not have to be one click to purchase a car. It doesn't have to be one click for everything. And I'm a big proponent that there might be areas in the industry in terms of the consumer car buying journey that might need to be, tweaked and refined, right? Yeah, I'm sure there's some uncomfortable parts of the negotiation process. You mentioned it, so I'll talk about it. But DriveBid, right? We're launching a consumer trade platform nationally that's going to actually hopefully help solve for some of those problems, which are the sticky parts, right? Which are, hey, I'm not a huge fan of going and visiting 6 dealerships to try to negotiate, the best price for my car. Or maybe I don't want to necessarily have my vehicle, posted on a trade platform tool to get 16 dealers to call me to try to convince me that they're going to give me the best price, right? But if we could solve for some of those sticky points and we can make that a better buying process, but still then engage that dealership at the end of the process, I think, and I'm a big believer in this, I believe that consumers will still want to come, look, touch, and feel and drive their vehicle. I do.
Yeah, it's the whole landscape is all getting more competitive, but dealerships in particular, because they have these new entries to the market. But the ones who do harness the power of technology and do prioritize the overall business goals are going to succeed, and I think they should stay around. And the ones who don't, they'll ultimately scale back and slowly start to go away. But for the ones who have the right recipe, I don't think that recipe is inherently broken.
No, I agree with you 100%. So I guess that kind of leads to the next question. So, if I'm listening here today and I'm, listening to the Auto Digest opportunity, maybe I'm a retailer, maybe I'm a vendor, maybe I'm a third party automotive marketplace. And, I want to get an opportunity to have Auto Digest reach out to me. What do I do?
Well, you start with doing something that is unique and that you're proud of and that your competitors are not doing, because you're not going to garner the attention of somebody like myself if you're just going about Monday through Friday, clocking in and clocking out. And number one, you shouldn't be doing it for me. You should be doing it for your employees,
right?
But if you are doing something that you are proud of and that you believe is unique, then reach out to me. I'll provide all my contact information, the website, just look up Auto Digest. But just reach out and we'll talk, and I'll share your story with those other people.
Excellent. So is it just editorial written articles, or can somebody contract you for blog writing services or SEO services, or what are some of the other services that you might provide with what you do?
Yeah, so the meat and potatoes of it is the editorials and those long form stories. But as it evolves and as I realize what people want, it's all up in the air, right? Money talks. But if you have a blog and you need somebody to write, then reach out to me. I'm not totally opposed to it, but again, it's going to have to be something that is not, it's not just, I don't want a technical article or a journal, right? I'm not a through and through researcher. So do it for yourself, do it for your employees, and then once you get through that, then I think you're on the path to success in a lot of ways.
Well, John, I'm excited to see where you go from here. I'm sure that our listeners are as well. Congratulations on your Auto Digest, and I'm hopeful that you're going to have many, many, many more articles written. And thank you again for the opportunity of being on the podcast today.
Yeah, it'll happen, and I love the direction it's headed. Thank you for having me on.
Yep, thanks. Congratulations.
Yes, sir.